About a month ago, I did this video on this weird situation that some of you guys might be experiencing. People lose a good amount of weight on paper, on the scale, and yet visually speaking, it's a bit lackluster. It's almost as if there's a disconnect between the weight loss numerically speaking and visually speaking. But this time around, things are a bit different because it seems like the gods of fitness or whoever, in all their wisdom, decided to pull an Uno reverse card. I've activated their trap card, and now I am pretty much in the exact opposite situation. Because if you look at my before and after photo so far, about five and a half weeks into my competition prep, in my subjective, I will admit, opinion, there is definitely a good visual difference. You would probably see this and think, hey, that's a solid, at least 5, 6, 7 pounds of fat loss? Yeah, about that. Not exactly, because if you actually look at the numbers that I am tracking, the difference between these two physique photos on average is just a hair over 3 pounds. I have actually had relatively slow weight loss, at least on this scale, during the first month of my prep, coming out to just barely half a pound per week, which I will admit, for me, that kind of sucks, and it has been worrying me a little bit. Reason number one, I see infographics and Instagram posts and all these things for it all the time. This is what we call the whoosh effect. Your fat is actually stored in individual fat cells. There is this belief that when we initially start losing weight, instead of these fat cells actually shrinking because they've liberated their internal fatty acids, and then you get nice and lean because your overall fat size is decreasing, instead, these fat cells at first start to fill up with water. They take in water, and then because of that, they don't actually shrink in size, and you aren't actually losing weight because you've lost weight in fat and you've just replaced it with weight of water in your actual fat cells. There's only one problem with this very common theory that I've seen passed around on social media for years, and that is that it's bullshit! This doesn't happen! I know, it's kind of funny how point number one in this video is actually something that doesn't exist, but I just really wanted to mention it because I see this as an explanation for the problem we're focusing on in this video. I see this all the time, and I don't understand why, because there is no scientific basis, at least not that I am aware of, for this occurring. It's not like a storage unit that you rent out from U-Haul that you can just fill with whatever crap you want. It doesn't do that. And don't get me wrong, water retention is a factor, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. However, specifically in fat cells, this whoosh effect, it's kind of bullshit. But luckily, what's not bullshit is actually knowing what's happening inside your body on a biological and hormonal level, which brings me to the sponsor of today's video, Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is a fast and inexpensive service that provides health blood tests you can do from the privacy of your own home. I personally use and recommend the Male Hormone Plus test, as it provides you with a reading of testosterone, SHBG, and estrogen. This way, if something comes back outside of the normal range, especially if it's low testosterone, you will know right away that it may be time to speak to a doctor, or at the very least start implementing some lifestyle changes to get those numbers up. Also, they gave me a promo code, so you guys can get 30% off your entire order using code Vitruvian. If you have never checked your hormones, or if you have in the past and want to get an update to make sure that they're still at healthy levels, check out Let's Get Checked using the link in the description box below. Alright, reasons number 2 and 3. We're going to do these ones together because they're kind of tied to the same concept. Creatine and sodium, and in general their effect on total body water. There have been, I've done videos about this in the past, how people believe that oh no, doesn't creatine pull water into the body and then I'm gonna look bloated? I'm not gonna be as lean because there's no more subcutaneous water in my tissue, blah blah blah. No, that's not a thing. I mean, creatine does pull water. Creatine binds to water molecules in the actual muscle. It has intramuscular water retention, but it's not going to make you look fat. It's not going to make you look bloated. However, it can potentially lead to an increase in body weight because, again, more water in your muscles, that's still more weight on this scale. How much of this, to what extent it happens is kind of hard to estimate. Also, it depends heavily based on how big you are. A 5'4", 100-pound woman is probably going to not gain as much overall water weight as a 250-pound, 6'5" guy. However, based on what I've seen, it could be as little as 1 to as much as 3 or 4 pounds. So if you're someone who started dieting down and you started supplementing with creatine, maybe you weren't in the past, you might be losing weight, you might be losing fat mass, but it's sort of negated to a certain extent by the fact that you are pulling in additional water weight due to your recent creatine supplementation. And this actually might pertain to me somewhat. My creatine supplementation over the past few months has been a little bit up and down. Like, I even ran out of it at one point and I didn't take anything for I think it was a month and a half. And then I restocked, got a bunch of new supplements right when, I'm getting into the ascension. I gotta get serious. I gotta get all my stuff in order, my diet, my training, my supplements. So maybe I did lose upwards of 5 or 6 pounds in fat. However, on the scale, you don't see it because I gained back 1 or 2 pounds in water weight. And this is sort of a similar concept with sodium, except less of a long-term thing, more of a short-term thing. High sodium intakes can lead to a temporary increase in body water. This could, to a certain extent, become a little bit of a problem, and again, similar to creatine, kind of make you think as if you're not losing as much fat or weight as you really should be, when in reality you did. It's just kind of covered up by the excess water intake. Reason number 4 is muscle gain. Yeah! I will admit, this is kind of hard to believe depending on the situation that you are in, most importantly depending on what is your experience level. Because someone like me who's been lifting for upwards of 15 years now, me saying, oh, the reason that I'm not losing weight is because I'm just putting on so much muscle. It's like, yeah, good luck with that, buddy. Remember the law of diminishing returns, guys. Every year that you are training, every year that you are gaining experience and putting on muscle means that your actual remaining muscle potential is going to be less and less. And it's also going to mean that it's much less likely and overall harder for you to actually put on muscle whilst you are dieting down. However, for some people out there, this is still very much a possibility. Namely, people who are kind of beginners, or even if you are not that inexperienced, you are someone like me who's been training for years, however, you are detrained. Maybe you stopped for a few months because of an injury, because life got in the way, whatever your reason is, and now you are resuming training. It is possible for you to actually lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, and that is one of the reasons why they might kind of cancel each other out, at least on the scale. I kind of think of it sort of like a spectrum. On this side you have yes, this is absolutely a possibility, and on the other side you have no, where that's very unlikely. Unfortunately, this is kind of where I am. Again, the newer you are, the more you go that way. The more detrained you are, the more you go that way. The more anabolic steroids you're taking, the more you go that way, and essentially the opposite of all those. So, although this might be a reason that some of you guys aren't seeing the weight loss that you would expect, I will be honest, in my situation, probably not as much as I wish. Number 5 is pretty much the exact opposite scenario of what I mentioned in that previous video, kind of sort of on this topic. In that video, I talked about how when you have a lot more body fat, even though you might see pretty decent numbers, changes on the scale, because you've got so much overall body fat remaining, you're not going to see that much of a change. However, when you're a lot leaner, such as I am this time around, again, this was the leanest starting physique I've ever had for any of my competition preps in the past, this is kind of the exact opposite scenario. You might not see that much of a change on the scale, but because you don't have as much starting base of body fat, visually speaking, it might be a bit more pronounced as opposed to what you'd expect. If you were to plot your visual improvements versus your decreasing body fat percentage, it's kind of oh baby! Because in the beginning, you going from 30 to 25% body fat, it's yeah, you lost a little bit, but you're still kind of fat, you can't really tell. And then the leaner and leaner you get, it's damn! you are losing the same amount of body weight here versus here, and yet the visual improvement is significantly higher because you've got less overall body fat remaining on your frame. Because since I am kind of like over here on the leaner side of the spectrum, even though I only lost like 3.5, maybe 4 pounds in overall body fat, that still can lead to a pretty decent visual improvement. Whereas if I lost that same 3.5-ish pounds of body weight, but I was like 220, you'd barely notice a difference. The last two things I want to mention to kind of give you both sides of the argument. One is, going to make you feel a bit better, and the other one might not. The pro is that at the end of the day, all of this doesn't necessarily matter. If you, like me, are dieting down for visual purposes, maybe you want to look a little leaner, maybe you've got a bodybuilding show coming up, like me, your scale doesn't necessarily matter. Your body fat measurement that your friend did with the calipers or the DEXA scan or whatever the hell you did, it doesn't matter. You can't go to the judges on a men's physique stage who gave you like 8th place and you're gonna be like, oh, but sir, if you'll refer to my DEXA scan, it says right here that actually I am a lot leaner than you think, and so I would urge you to reconsider my placing. They're gonna be like, oh, cool, get the fuck out of here, you weirdo. You're not doing this. You're not losing weight to just lose weight, to have this like lower number at the end of the day. This isn't like Final Fantasy where you need a higher level to beat the ultimate boss. No, you want to look better. You want to feel better, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. However, that doesn't mean that weight is completely arbitrary and you should ignore it altogether, because chances are usually the two, how you visually look and weight, they are very correlated and they do go hand in hand. And although yes, one might be lagging behind a little bit due to the various reasons I mentioned in this video, I gotta be honest. You can't use this stuff as a reason for like, I should be down 20 pounds and I'm not. Oh, because of the creatine, the water, the this, the that. It reminds me of this one scene I remember from My 600-Pound Life.
So instead of hoping that you lost 30 pounds, you gained 17 pounds. What happened there?
I think it's mainly fluid, because I did good once I got back.
It's not water. For that, you have to drink at least 300 gallons of water.
How much water? Wait, did you drink a bathtub? Like, what are you talking about? It's kind of the same case here. This stuff could result in a little bit of a discrepancy, 2, 3, 4 pounds in either direction. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be an excuse for why you're not losing 20, 30 pounds or whatever your goal is 4 months down the road. And that's something that I unfortunately had to kind of tell myself as well, because my mind did start to wander. I'm like, well, why am I not losing weight as much as I did in prior years? Is it's the water, the creatine? Is it my hormone level? I did just turn 30 the other day, so is it finally happening? Do I need to go on TRT? Is age catching up with me? It's the lead in the walls in the drinking water. But at the end of the day, no, sorry to say, you're just being a little bitch and you gotta work harder. That's it. Damn!